Thank you so much for your time, Terry. I put this out a couple of days on the page, obviously saying I was going to speak to Paul Sykes, old probation officer, and I've had so many messages. Obviously you knew him, I suppose, in a professional sense.
Well, more than that. There's quite a backstory. Let me turn this bloody television on. I was born in Normanton, which is next door to Wakefield. So
yes.
We all knew about Paul Sykes. We all knew that.
Sorry, Terry. Can I just take your age, please? So Sykes was born in 46, so he would have been 40.
I was born in 1950.
Right, so he would have been. Let me think. So 46. So you would have been.
He was 4 years older than me.
48. 48. 78. Yes.
I'm 74.
Right, that's correct.
He would have been 78.
So you were a local lad. Can I just ask, when was the first time you ever heard the name Paul Sykes?
Oh, when I was a teenager. He was quite notorious in that area.
And what when you say notorious, for what? What kind of things?
Violence, mainly. But I never took much notice of it because I had my own problems at the time, and I wasn't really particularly frightened of violence.
Yeah.
That's another story, but you're not interested in that. But I wasn't interested in violence.
Yeah.
And I left Wakefield when I was 17. So.
Right. Okay. So obviously you got a career in the probation services. Can I ask you how long you did that for?
10 years. Well, 7 to 10 years. I can't remember. 7 years.
Right. And obviously you probably, it's fair to say, you came up with the name Paul Sykes again, because obviously he was in court literally at the 70s.
He was in prison. He was in prison when I met him.
Right. What year was that? We talking, Terry?
Oh God, I don't know, 83, 84. I'm guessing.
What prison was that? Strangeways or?
No, he was in Armley at the time.
Right.
So I was at a meeting with the probation service, and they said somebody's got to go see Paul Sykes, and nobody wanted to go. I said, well, I'll go. And I went to the prison visit, and he said, basically, who the fuck are you?
Yeah.
I said, Terry Parnell, probation, so I'm not going to talk to you. I said, well, don't run away, Paul. Sit down, I've got a packet of Woodbines here. You can smoke the cigarettes, and I'll buy you cups of tea or coffee, whatever you want, and I'll talk to you. And I wound him up a bit. I mean, he wouldn't talk. I could see I was getting under his skin. I said, people think you're just a punch-drunk animal, Paul. And nobody wants to come and see you. And I thought, well, I've got nothing else to do. I'm only a probation officer. I thought I'll come and see you. You don't want to talk to me. You're a waste of time. So I got a few cups of coffee. He had a few Woodbines. And I said goodbye. Then the next time I went into Armley Prison to do a social inquiry report on somebody else, I booked him to see him as well. And he said, what the fuck are you doing back? I said, well, I enjoyed our conversation so much last time. I thought you'd want to see me again.
Yeah.
And he said, I fucking ought to punch your head in. I said, oh, come outside and say that.
Yeah.
And he thought that was very funny. And he laughed. I thought, I'm getting the hang of this. I'll give you a little insight to Paul Sykes. He was so anti-authority, it was unbelievable. So the way I worked him was with paradoxical directives and being on his side. Do you know what a paradoxical directive is?
No. Do you want to explain to the viewers?
Well, it's telling somebody to do what they are already thinking of doing or already doing, and it puts the idea, if they're anti-authority, to do the opposite. So I was at a meeting in Wakefield Prison, and it was hated in Wakefield Prison.
Can I ask why?
Because he banjoed a couple of prison officers.
So that was a word he used. I interviewed a guy. I spoke to a guy a couple of years back, a boxing coach, and basically he said I could tell he was crazy and he was being nice to me, but he said,
he wasn't crazy. He wasn't crazy. He was a very, very intelligent man.
But his behaviour, that's not intelligent, is it? For obviously all the years in prison, and
that's where paradoxical directives come in. I mean, have you got time to talk about this?
Yeah, absolutely. Knock yourself out.
I went to a meeting in Wakefield Prison over somebody else. In actual fact, it was a probation officer who was leaving the prison, and we were talking. So we said, "You're doing a report on." In actual fact, it was a parole report. I don't want to blow me on trumpet, but I had a 100% record of parolees, which stood me in good stead in the end. And they said, well, you've got you've seen Paul Sykes, aren't you, for a parole report? He said, this prison officer said that the trap won't be out more than 35 weeks before he's back in. And he only had 6 weeks of his sentence to do. And there were 3 prison officers there, and I was sat at a table with a couple of probation seniors, and I said to these 3, I bet you £1,000 he won't re-offend while he's on parole to me. I bet you £1,000 each, go and sign it up now. And my senior said to me, what are you doing? That's not bloody probation work. So yeah, it is. It is. I was a bit of a maverick myself. I said, sign you up now, £1,000 each. If he re-offends within 6 weeks, I will give you £1,000, and if he doesn't, you'll give me £1,000. And they wouldn't take it. Obviously not. But I had method behind me, a motive there. And my senior said to me, what are you doing, Paul Sykes, is to re-offend? I said, what I'll do, Brian, is I'll go to Paul and say, I've got £3,000 here from prison officers. All you've got to do is stay out of trouble for 6 weeks, and we've got £3,000. He said, well, you've got £3,000. I says, no. I'll give you 2.5. I can get some money, get you a flat in Wakefield, and, if you don't re-offend, prison officers will pay for it. He thought that was brilliant. And I said, well, if you they didn't take the bet, unfortunately. I said to Paul, well, look, you'd have kept out of trouble for 6 weeks for that kind of money. So you can keep out of trouble for 6 weeks. All you got to do is keep your head on. And when he came out of prison, I said, well, there's a pub, I can't remember the name of the pub, right next to the prison, where the prison officers go.
Oh, yes, I know. We'll
have a pint together. And so we went and had a pint, and a couple of prison officers came to where we were sitting and rattling the keys at him. And I could see him getting bloody wound up. I said, what are you doing now, Paul? Because one of them was stood at the bandit. He's going to plaster them 3 bastards up against the bloody bandit, and then go in the snug and plaster the rest of them. That's a paradoxical directive, because that's what he's thinking of doing. And he said, well, hang on a minute. That don't make any sense, because I'll be back inside in no time. I said, no, Paul, but that's exactly what you were thinking of doing. I says, now, we haven't got the £3,000 off the prison officers, but I can get you the bail hostel, probation hostel, Elm Bank it was called, Elm Bank, at Heckman Dyke. And I was running the volunteers at the time. And one of my volunteers working there, Diane Taylor she was called then, but I've married her since.
Right.
Diane Parnell now.
Yeah.
But I says, just keep your eye out when Paul Sykes comes along. I says, but beware, because he's an ex-police officer. I said, he hates police, so don't tell him you're a police officer. She says, well, that's a bit deceptive. I says, no, because we'll tell him eventually. I want him to get to like you first, and then tell him. So we couldn't get him into a flat. So he came out and he went to Elm Bank, and it was what a British state, what a magnificent British specimen he was. And sorry, I'm going back, I'm rambling a bit. came out on parole, I said to him, if I'm going to work with you, Paul, I want you to promise me you won't hit me or anything or hurt me. And he says, look, if someone paid me £20,000 to give you a bloody going over, you do the same for me with a prison officer job. I'd just rough you up for a little bit and give you £10,000. Would that be all right? I said, well, yeah, that'd be fine. So we're all right then, as long as you know. And I was confronted a bit because his father was a prison officer.
Yeah, that's right.
And it was getting a bit loud, and these prison officers kept bursting in. And I said, hang on a minute, I'm interviewing, just go away. He says, we can't get enough, we've had this with him before, we can't get enough people around him to try and calm him down. We see him in the exercise yard, and the exercise yard was like a basketball pitch with a big cage around it. And he stood there in his shorts, magnificent build. He said, what do you see when you see me, eh? I said, I see a big man, very dangerous, who's in a cage, and those little people are going to keep you here and keep you in a cage until we feel safe. Think about that, Paul. Think about that, And in actual fact, a couple of prison officers were taking a young lad to the youth offending section, and one of them pushed him, and he went like he was fucking crazy. He was banging on the bloody cage. Come and don't have a go at me, kid. Can you two come in here? Come and try and push me around. And I said, Paul, this is why. Those little people are frightened of you. You're too powerful. You're too frightening. I said, you're an intelligent bloke. Think about it. Just think about it. Use the system in your favour. Anyway, he went to Elm Bank, and Diane got attached to him, and she was telling the story. Somebody from the office said to her, "Aren't you frightened when you're with Paul Sykes?" She said, how can you be frightened when you're with Paul Sykes? I mean, nobody's going to come near me when I'm with Paul Sykes, are they? And so he began to turn a little bit. And the other turning point at that time was they wanted to question him for something, so the police were after him, and they always send about half a dozen or more to arrest him. Yeah. And one of his school friends, who was a female, police got him to the police, and she saw him and arrested him, put the handcuffs on him, and took him into the police station. And he was furious. And he said, what the fuck's going on here? He said, this little tart came up and put the handcuffs on me. I said, well, you let her. He said, we can't do anything with a woman. So I got permission to see the chief superintendent of Wood Street Police Station. And I says, can I get an agreement with you that when you want to arrest Paul Sykes, you just send a policewoman down? Because they sent all these policemen down.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because...
The police dog got him straight away. And he actually picked it.
Hello? Yeah, sorry. It's,
Hello?
so are you still there, sir?
Hello?
Yeah, so it's so I spoke to the chief of West Yorkshire Police 4 years ago, and I spoke to a Lupset Bobby, and they said what we used to do is like it was almost military precision. He said they knew basically if you kicked off, we had to send half the shift, but if you sent a police female officer, it was kind of there was no threat. Where if they sent 10 of the best, it was like he would roll his sleeves up. It was almost like in the animal kingdom, you don't stare at a gorilla, and he would see this as a direct threat. And he was a guy who loved to indulge in physical violence.
I started off saying send a policewoman. I put the idea in the head, send a policewoman. Again, it's paradoxical directives. They sent the police dog on him, and the police dog jumped at him, and he picked it up, crushed it, and threw it back at him.
I know he did assault a couple of dogs. Can I ask you then, obviously, it was a lot of dealing with Sykes' kind of mental games?
there was a lot of mental games in the first instance.
Yeah.
But when he finished his parole, he buggered off to Singapore.
That's right.
But he didn't break his parole, and he came to see me. And he wouldn't come to my office the normal way. He had to climb through my office window to see me.
Why was that?
There's a bit of a switch because he. I think it was. That was again. I think mind games. I don't want to come through the office and sit with the office people. They'll you know. So he says, "Can I come and see?" He says, "You can talk to me through the window." Don't talk to me through the window. Come, climb in through the window and sit in my office, you know, and we'll talk. And I got the more I got to know him, the more I liked him, and Diane worked with him well. And suddenly he had somebody in authority who I was on his side actually. The more I listened to him, the more I spoke to him. The more I saw he had he'd had a raw deal. Yeah. The people were against him. I mean, I knew that from my own in the probation service. You know, he's a punch-drunk animal and all that. He wasn't. He was very intelligent, and in actual fact, when he came back from Singapore, he looked me up. And we got back together again. And I used him on a couple of people. I used to deal with violent offenders. Yeah. And I had a young lad who was done for carrying a knife and an assault. And I took a flick knife off him. I said to this kid, because I used to go to the local pubs, to talk to people. And I said, "Give me your knife." He said, "I ain't got a knife." I said, "You have." He said, "Who's dressing up?" I said, "Nobody. You just dress yourself up. I'll give you your bloody knife." And I had it for a while, this flick knife. I said, "You think that's going to help you?" He said, "Oh, yeah, self-defence." I said, I'll take it somebody, because I knew where Paul lived. And I took him down to Paul Sykes' house, and of course he was in awe of Paul Sykes. I said, "This kid thinks he's going to I'll take you on with a flick knife." So I give the kid the flick knife. He says, "Right, go and take him on then." I said, you couldn't take him on with a fucking shotgun, mate. Yeah. Let alone the bloody flick knife. I said, "He'll tear your head off." And Paul sat and talked to him about violence. And then I knew some. I worked with people like Frankie the Bear and the Hughes brothers, because Paul used to collect debts. Yeah. For the gangs, and my sister says, "Can you get him?" Because my theory was, if you get if you get him somewhere to live and get his end away, he's going to be easy to deal with. And I said to Paul, try and get a job. And if you can't get a job, do something self-employed. He brought me a business card one time, and it said Paul Sykes, debt collector, threatnograms a speciality. That's That was brilliant. Yeah. Isn't that funny? Threatnograms.
Yeah, I've actually got one of them cards. The Last Resort Debt Collection.
Have you?
That's what it was called. Yeah. It had his.
Yeah. Threatnogram.
Yeah, but do you think he was mentally ill at all?
You've really looked into this, haven't you?
Yeah, well, I've written 3 books on him, which has been signed to be a film, hasn't it? But
no, I don't think. I don't think he was mentally ill. I think he was a very, very damaged young man. And there was a tremendous vulnerability about him, which really got to me. And I understand him. My father was violent to me. Paul's father was violent to him. But there was a great vulnerability. It shows in the way he died, doesn't it?
Yeah, I went.
Those people that had the grudge against him.
Yeah, I've went above and beyond, and I've spoken to various people.
You've gone off again.
Sorry, can you hear me, sir? I think we've got a bit of a delay, haven't we? Hello?
Yeah, don't worry about it. When I left the probation. Hello?
Yeah, sorry, I'll let you carry on. When I left the probation service, I wasn't very popular.
popular with my colleagues, but I was popular with the lifers. That I had 15 lifers on my casebook, and we were going to have a get together in a pub, but he was banned from just about every pub in Wakefield.
Yeah.
There's a place called the Redoubt.
Yes, still going.
In Lupsy.
Oh no, I think it's closed now.
I did a good job for this guy's brother who run it, and I said, he had a back room. He had a back room away from the bar. I said, can I say goodbye to my clients in your back room? I said, but one of them's Paul Sykes. Oh, she says, I said, I promise you it won't be a problem. This is a lovely little story, this. So he said, okay. So Paul was there, and some little short, fat, bald bloke actually infiltrated our meeting. It was chirping at Paul. So Paul, I've been always wanting to meet you, you're a legend. And he said, and Paul, I could see Paul getting wound up. In the end, Paul turned around to him and said, why don't you shut up, you little fat, bald cunt?
Yeah.
And then he looked at me, and then he turned back to the boat and said, no offence meant, mate. That was what it was like. No offence. I mean, how offensive can you get? But what else do you want to know? I mean, Diane worked with him. Diane knew him well. Diane worked with him in the hospice. Not the hospice. I worked in a hospice later. In the hostel, and she got on with him great, absolutely great. And I mean, we loved him. He loved us. He had a disabled child, don't you?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Did you know that?
Yes. Yeah, I completely know. Yeah.
Oh. And we thought, and he said, who better to be born to than Paul Sykes? Nobody's gonna mock him or hurt him. When there was a real gentle side to him. He fought John Gardner, didn't he?
John L. Gardner, yes. Yeah. Why do you think? I mean, was most of the
which was it, John Gardner?
Yes, it was John L. Gardner. But why do you think most of the probation officers kind of feared him? I'm right in saying that a lot of people didn't really want to go and see him then and kind of work with him.
Well, he was a scary guy. He was about 6'2", big wall of muscle, and he was nasty.
Yeah.
With authority. So I can understand that. I mean, I went to see him one time, and they put me in a special room, and they put with a glass door, a prison officer on the other side, and Paul kept getting distracted because there was a prison officer on the other side. And eventually, I said, "Let me sort this out, Paul." I said to the prison officer, "You're putting us off our interview here." He said, "I've got to stand here because they've told me if he blows up, you're in danger." I said, "If he blows up, I'm 5'7". I said, "What are you, 5'9"? I said, "Us two against Paul Sykes in a small room, he'll kill us both. Just go away and I'll sign a bit of paper if you want, or speak to your dictaphone. I'll take responsibility for that. I don't want you near me. I don't want you near us while we're talking." Because he told me some things that I'm not going to tell you.
Yeah.
Personal and private. Because he did have fears and worries. And I said, just go away and leave us to it. This is why people didn't want to deal with him. He was a scary guy. He really was a scary guy. But he was a lovely man. He really was.
I mean, can I ask you? Was there never any moment?
Tell you about when he went to Singapore.
No, do you want to? Sorry, just before we go into the Singapore bit, then was there any point in your kind of relationship when you were kind of afraid for your safety?
No, never once. Never once was I frightened of Paul Sykes. Which, I mean, I can't explain why. I mean, I admired the physique of the man, but I was never frightened of him. No, never frightened of him. And my wife was never frightened of him. He never threatened. Well, he did a couple of times, threaten and intimidate, but it didn't work. Because I felt safe with him once we got the boundaries set. You have to set boundaries. No, never felt frightened of him at all. It was just because a couple of times I felt intimidated. Doesn't mean to say that he was intimidating. That was my problem, not his.
Yeah.
He when he was at the hostel, the guy who ran it decided to do a sort of an exercise about body space. You know, you have your own body space. You feel intimidated at a certain body space. And Paul, because Paul was quite intelligent and very astute, he said, "I don't know what you mean, Brian." He says, "Well, look, you know," he says, "Look, you stand over there and walk towards me, and I'll tell you when I feel intimidated." Paul got about 6 foot from me. He said, "No, stop." He said, "I feel intimidated now." How Paul knew that? Paul knew that. He collected debts for the bloody gangs. He knew how to intimidate people. And then Jim Bryant said to him, "I'll walk towards you and you tell me when you feel intimidated." Well, Paul's not intimidated by this bloke, senior probation officer. So he walked straight up to Paul, and Paul said, "Well, I don't feel intimidated." He said, "Well, yeah, no, but I do." He said, "Well, you were walking." You know, he could play people. And then sometimes he played the dumb idiot, and he wasn't a dumb idiot. He really wasn't. He was very sharp, very intelligent, and he knew people. And he knew the system.
Yeah. Do you want to tell us about the Singapore thing then?
Well, the day after his parole, he wanted to see me, and I said, "I'll see you," but he wouldn't see me in the office. I think he thought I was setting him up or whatever, because I knew what he was doing. He was always threatening to run away, and I'd talked to him because I was in Singapore for 3 years.
Yeah.
And he wanted to go and see for himself. He would never take anybody's word for anything. He wanted to see for himself. The day after parole, we arranged to meet near Thorpe Park, Thorne Park, and he said, "I'm going now." And he said, "I want to see you before I go." He said, "You haven't tipped anybody off, have you?" I said, "No, I haven't." I said, "Because I only tip people off about something I'm sure of." And he said, "Well, you were sure of this, weren't you?" Say again, he's smart. I said, "Well, you know, I couldn't prove that I was sure of it. So, you know, get yourself off if you want. You know where I am when you need me." And then he went off to Singapore. And I talked about the Straits of Malaya.
Straits of Johor.
He reckoned this. I don't believe him, but he reckoned he swam. That's it. Say Johor Bahru. He swam across them with his trainers round his neck in case there were sharks. But that's another thing. He just wanted to see it for himself.
Well, can I just tell you, I actually
come and see me again.
I actually interviewed his the carer. Now the story he told. Now I've actually looked into the Straits of Johor is only 0.6 of a mile, so it's just over half a mile. Obviously, he was a ridiculously amazing swimmer, so it's very easy to do. And the shark story is what he kind of relayed to his carer, who was looking after him in his old age, was lots of baby sharks, because he thought he was being shot at. You know, there was obviously the police and everything were after him over there, and
nibbling at him.
Sorry?
Yeah. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I've spoken to so many different people, and they said, you know, he was a guy who didn't tell lies. I don't know. I mean, as I said, I didn't meet him, but I've spoken to so many who have, and I think there was the truthful story in that. I mean, can I ask you now? Obviously, I've just told you that the film's kind of coming.
Oh yes, yeah.
What's your opinions on him now? Do you see the interest in him now? Obviously, he's been gone nearly 20 years.
Has it been 20 years?
2007. So, I mean, it's not. Well,
I tell you what, Paul Sykes. 2007.
That's right.
And he was treated badly in his old age, wasn't he?
Terrible.
And they say, well, he was a sparring partner for people like Joe Frazier, wasn't he?
That's correct, 1973.
And such, but he had 9 fights before he fought for the European title. That's not bad going, is it?
8 fights. It was for the British and the Commonwealth.
He might not have been the best boxer in the world, British and Commonwealth, but if he was stood in a phone box with somebody, Paul would have won with anybody. He was, but I don't know. That's just the way he was brought up, isn't it?
Yes, I think his parents have a lot to.
Man, he was just. I thought he was a lovely man.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to ask you there. Obviously, his parents have a lot to answer to.
He was.
I do apologise. It's like a delay, isn't it? But can I just ask you the last question, Terry? Who was the guy? You knew him. I didn't. I've researched him so much. There'll be people listening to this. You spent a lot of time being his probation officer. I imagine, a lot of funny tales, a lot of scary tales. But ultimately, who was the character?
Yeah. Was he a character?
No, I'm saying, who was he? The character, if you're in your words. If you could kind of explain, like.
Well, I just think he was a lovely man. Explain what?
No, I'm just trying to sum up the interview, Terry. So if you just wanted to kind of put in your last couple of words, like, obviously you knew him, I didn't. From your experiences, how would you kind of sum him up?
I think he was a lovely man. I think he was a very protective man. I think I'm lost with a way to explain him. I thought the world of him. I think he went beyond the call of duty. I think he thought a lot of me. Well, I hope he did. I think he mentioned me in one of his books. I haven't seen it, but there we go.
Yeah, and I mean, one thing is.
Still there?
Yeah, sorry. So there's a bit of a delay, obviously, for where we are. But something. A lot of people have kind of held it against me. I kind of come across the story, stuck my head in the beehive. Some people, are really. Are so annoyed I kind of dug up the ghost, if you like. But ultimately, and kind of the final word on it is, Wakefield will never forget that man, will they?
No, and I don't think the world should either. I'm really pleased that somebody's writing about him, because he deserves to be remembered, but not for his reputation or rumours or whatever, but for what he was. He was a kind man. I mean, you ought to talk to your wife. She's out at the moment.
Yeah,
but,
I would love to do that.
Other people in the hostel,
Yeah.
Yeah, well, she'll be back in a couple of hours.
Well, I'll tell you what, Terry, we can get. She
thought the world of him.
Yeah.
We can what?
Yeah, so sorry, there's about a 4-second delay. So obviously we could do I can speak to your better half maybe tomorrow or something. But you mentioned their rumours. Now that's something that always gets thrown at me. Now I've spoken to the chief of West Yorkshire Police in 2020. I spoke to a Lupset Bobby, and I spoke to the Home Secretary of Offenders, a guy called Phil Wheatley. I don't know if you know who he is. And I asked him a lot about the rumours, and I've never found any. I've never found any facts, and obviously. Sorry.
No, there's no truth in the rumours. There's no truth in the rumours. In fact, Paul was good at spreading rumours about himself, because it was good for his reputation as a debt collector. You know?
Yeah.
But he was a truthful man. I remember one time when I was in court, and the prosecutor said, I put it to you, Mr. Sykes, that you're lying. He says, look at you and look at me. Why would I have to lie? Brilliant point. Why would I have to lie?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Neil Fox, a probation officer, this is how rumours spread. He was going over to court, and Paul jumped over the dock and run out, and he went through the double doors, burst them open and went on, and Neil Fox was about 5'4" and very thin, was still on the other side of the doors and got flattened, and the Wakefield Express said something like, violent criminal, Paul Sykes. Neil Fox, probation officer, tries to stop violent criminal escaping. Paul didn't even know he was there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's one thing, obviously, if you kind of moved out the area, Terry, but, I've spoken to journalists from the Wakefield Express, and towards the end of his days, they said we used to just put Paul in because everyone used to talk about him, and if we had nothing to write, we'll just go picture Sykes and, say he was doing this and doing that, and, the internet these days is a pretty cruel place. It's a pretty... It's not a nice environment, and there's a lot of nasty, a lot of untruths being said about him. You were a probation officer. You never heard of any kind of sexual offences from him, did you?
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not a sniff of anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine Paul. He was very, very protective of women. In my view, anyway.
Yeah.
I just think he was lovely.
Yeah.
I think he was much maligned, much misunderstood. If he'd have been my size, he'd have had no problems, would he?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. I mean, he, in actual fact, he was actually 6'3" and a half.
Wendy Doggett.
That's correct. Yes.
Was he 6'3.5"? I thought it was 6'2".
No, I was 6'3" and a half officially. Yeah.
He once said to me, he said, "I look at the world this way." Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's quite a man, wasn't he?
Oh, yeah, he was a colossal of a man. But you know what, mate? That has been fantastic.
What got you interested in him? What?
So I come across as obviously I'm a huge boxing fan, and I so someone said to me in 2012, they said, when you get a minute, go on YouTube and type in Paul Sykes Wakefield, and so I did it, and I've just got to be honest, I've said it a lot of the years, but I kind of walked into the documentary, I walked into his book, I met all the characters, and I produced books that have kind of been signed up to be a film. And I'm going to be honest, I mean, I'm writing my 27th book at the minute, but I would never have written one book without I came across Paul Sykes. So I suppose I have a lot to thank him for, because the story has totally captivated me, and I dare say I probably became obsessed. And and I kind of still am today. I like to understand why. What makes somebody behave like that.
Well, you can get obsessed with Paul Sykes. Well, he had a very violent father. I mean, one of his school friends said that he was sat on the curb, upset, and didn't go home because his dad had beat him up because he'd lost his hat.
Yeah.
I understood that, because my father's violent. I understand that. I understand that he can be frightened. But there comes a time, because he said he was a bit of an animal because he beat his father up, didn't he, at one point?
Yes, he did a few times.
But I understand why. Yeah, but I mean, I've come across that a few times with fathers abusing daughters and a few abusing sons, but sons grow up and get bigger and stronger.
Yeah.
And I never condemned him for that. I think that was refreshing for him. Don't blame you, Paul. In fact, a lot of the times when he told me about things he'd done, I'd said, "Well, fucking good on you, mate." You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Society doesn't feel that way.
Yeah.
But I really, I was heartbroken when I heard that he died. But go on, you were saying.
I mean, his ending. You know, I mean, if I say that he got. If he did any wrong in life, he was paid back 1,000 times. I mean, that is not an exaggeration. You know, there was the youths in Wakefield that would hunt him in packs. They'd set fire to him with lighter fluid. They'd wee on him, crack eggs on him, and it became a bit of a sport. You know, to the. And I've spoke to so many different people over the years, and you know, Johnny Nelson said to me, he said, them youths, the kids, would never have once had any idea the fear that man could install. And you know, a lot of them, you know, Peter Fury said to me, he said those people wouldn't have looked at him sideways, but obviously he was very vulnerable by then, and you know, he understood. You know, he wouldn't make a police statement. You know, he said, you know, he actually told one person, he said, look, I've did a lot of wrong in my life, and you know, I suppose it's life going 360, but who are we to judge? But yeah, it's a very, very tragic, harrowing tale, but it's one that was, you know, was very, very true, and in fact, it actually happened in West Yorkshire.
It was one that's got to be told.
Absolutely, completely, and even for people to learn. And
I'd like to thank you for telling the story. I mean, that's very good of you. It's not a task many would take on.
I've had a lot of trouble from it.
I really, I can imagine.
Yeah.
I have, but I went above and beyond the college. Well, I say that, but I once had a client of mine when I saw him in the probation office, because I worked for a legal firm, and he said, "Don't sit here with me, mate. They'll think you're one of us." I said, "I am one of you, you cunt. I was born on a bloody housing estate in Normanton. So I know what it's like. I know what it's like, and I spoke Paul's language, and I knew he boxing as well. So there we go.
Yeah. Well, listen, Terry, I want to thank you.
You ring me anytime you want.
I was just going to say, sorry.
Who'll give you my number?
I spoke to your son, and he kindly.
Give you my number.
Your son.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah. Well, listen. The next time we speak, hopefully we won't have this delay on. But I would like to speak to your better half. So is it okay to give her a ring tomorrow? Because obviously my YouTube followers would love to hear her side.
It certainly is. Yeah, she loves Paul. Yeah, she'll talk to you about Paul. You might not be able to shut her up, but she'll talk to you about him.
Right, thank you so much. Well, listen, thank you so much, sir. I'll put this out, and I'll ring you better half tomorrow for a part 2.
Okay, lovely.
Thank you so much, sir. God bless. Have a great weekend. That's I do apologise. There was a delay there. I think there was about 4 or 5 seconds, but lovely guy, and you read what I said. You know, that was his probation officers, and I knew that because I spoke to Phil Wheatley, which is the Home Secretary of, I don't know what's the correct term, it's the Home Secretary of Offending, but he was a governor at Hull Prison. He was on that documentary, the guy who looks a bit like Harold Shipman at the start. I spoke with the Chief of West Yorkshire Police 2020, and I've spoke to a couple of police officers, one from Lupset about 2019, and I said as much as we despised him and hated him, there was nothing like that. So it's just all completely made up for views. But Leah, let us know what you think about it in the comments below, and I will get the part 2 up and done in the next couple of days. Thank you all for listening. Don't forget to click and subscribe. God bless, and have a wonderful weekend.